Good evening, everybody. Welcome out to Cabinet on the 10th of October. Good to see you all. First of all, apologies for absence. I think we are just Councillor Wilcox, who's not able to join this evening. Declaration of interest. I'm going to go. What else? Councillor. Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare a personal interest in item 4. I am a director of our wholly owned company, Lichfield West Midlands Payment Services.
Great, thank you. Gary, I wonder what yours is.
I'd like to declare the same personal interest in item 4 as a director of the LACO. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Alex.
Same personal interest. I'm the chairman of LACO.
Brilliant. Thank you all. As ever, if anything crops up throughout the meeting while this discussion is going through, please feel free to interrupt and declare that interest at the earliest possible opportunity. First item on the agenda tonight is the medium-term financial strategy. Councillor Strachan, Mr. Thomas, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. This is your customary update on progress with the MTFS at the October stage. You might recall, as a cabinet, we approved the timetable and the guiding principles in July. And we have since reported the contents of the emergent MTFS scrutiny, and that took place last month, and their comments are contained within the report. I think it's valuable to set some context before moving on to the specific projections, and I know that I say this at every meeting that I come and report to, but the landscape regarding local government finance remains extremely uncertain, and the risks associated with that uncertainty are reflected in this report. The current concerns particularly are around high rates of inflation. They are especially challenging to us as an authority, both as we look to bring forward capital projects, but also as we carry on with our business as usual, because operating expenditure has, of course, increased. And those are the key drivers that result in the funding gap over the 5-year period of this emergent budget being currently projected to be £1.6 million. The requirement to finance a replacement waste fleet and any future potential borrowing requirements if borrowing is used to fund capital projects, and that is currently not Plan A, will add to that pressure. You'll see within the report we contain the off-log analysis. This has been in place since July of this year, and that currently confirms that we sit in the median range of the majority of the metrics, with only our use of non-ring-fenced reserves as a percentage of service spend being slightly above. But that's likely to be a product of the release from reserves last year that we carried out after the wide-ranging review in the last council, and so I would expect that to normalise in the coming year, assuming there are no major shocks. Turning to a couple of key highlights, you'll see at paragraphs 3.23 through to 3.27 an analysis of local taxation and where we sit currently within both near neighbour groups and nationally. I don't propose to go into any great detail tonight on any future intentions regarding local taxation, other than to say that as a council we will act with the utmost sensitivity in approaching the issue, and we do have to find a way of balancing the needs of the authority against the demands that are placed on residents. And I'll refer you also to specific projections that we model at paragraph 3.68 much later in the report. Can I also draw your attention this evening to paragraph 3.31 and 3.32? And there is a little bit of a subtext story in that, because it indicates that we have, over the last 18 months or so, delivered slightly over £2 million worth of saving or additional income generated. So saying that there remains a £476,000 shortfall actually only tells about a fifth of the story. That shortfall is currently to be met from general reserves, and while that isn't, in our assessment, a sustainable approach, it's one that could be borne over a short period of time, while the measures that are likely to deal with that in the medium term are delivered. And we currently would say that we have confidence in the finance brief that that will be a short-term issue, and we have confidence in our colleagues to bring those forwards. But also the driver of some of the frustration in that is linked to the rate of inflation, and you'll see at paragraph 3.36 that the inflationary impact in this year alone is £363,000 for this authority, with the cumulative projected impact of £2.2 million over the life of this MTFS. And so it will not be lost on members that a substantial chunk of that funding gap is reflected by the impact of inflation on this authority. Taking you through and touching very briefly on other elements of the report, you'll see the projected MTFS revenue budget from paragraph 3.39. That contains the key assumptions that are made by Anthony in drawing together what he wishes to present. as future assumptions. They were tested at scrutiny. We believe that they are resilient, but of course they're under constant review. Our approach to fees and charges, some of which is directly and intrinsically linked to additional income generation, is at 3.43 and 4. And again, any comments on those would be welcomed. And you'll see at 3.47, we discuss the implications of potential forthcoming financial reforms, or indeed not brought forward potential financial reforms. Any delay to that has a substantial impact on this authority, a beneficial one at present, although of course we're alive to the fact that reform is likely to be coming down the line in the fullness of time, and we make our usual pessimistic projections given that we simply don't know. It was noted at scrutiny that there is a £9 million range between our most pessimistic and most optimistic scenario, and within that funnel, effectively, as the broadening scenarios come across the MTFS, you'll see the level of risk that this authority is trying to work with as it plans its budget going forwards. Briefly on the capital programme coming forwards, again, you'll see we assume no income whatsoever from the Birmingham Road site. That is not because we don't think we're going to make any money out of it, it's because with our customary caution, we don't include any projects until they're costed and ready to go. And finally, members, at 3.61, you'll see the current projections of the steady erosion of our reserves if certain key drivers are not met. And that is why the finance brief sees this as a short-term thing and not something that can be borne long-term. I'm sure there will be questions, so I'll shut up and listen. And we'll take anything.
Councillor Stratton, thank you very much for that comprehensive report. Are there questions? Yeah, I don't know whether you were nodding because you were wholeheartedly agreeing with what Rob said, or because you had a question.
Oh, I hope it was a former.
Indeed, and I think it would be pertinent to just start off by saying that the detail that's included in these when they come through and the frequency, I find extremely helpful. Notwithstanding the amount of uncertainty that I think is not necessarily going in the direction of travel that we would like it to, and especially at the moment with lots of other things that are happening in the world at the moment. As far as the risks are concerned, and bringing things a little bit closer to home, looking at some of the other unitary authorities close by that are having a certain amount of challenges, well, should we say, how is that looking here with regards to any potential impact that might be falling out from some of those? If I can just start with that one.
Well, starting with the direct driver for some of the financial woes of neighbouring authorities, and I'm not here to sling mud, so I'm not going to, is that we as a Shire district are simply not exposed to some of the higher risk areas, particularly in adult and children's social care, and in the exposure that we know that our friends at county have to issues around the roads, shall we say, both of which are hugely expensive, but fortunately, as a Shire district, don't affect us. So far as the extent to which we're being lent on by neighbouring authorities to support them in their ambitions, I'm not aware of anything at the moment, but I don't know whether Anthony is aware. I see a shake of the head, and so at the moment, they're not affecting us. We are, of course, alive to risks that may come out of the woodwork going forward. But I think the real woes that we're seeing in unitary authorities and in top tier authorities are borne directly by the frankly extraordinary financial demands that they're facing, and yeah, it's a huge relief that as a Shire district we don't have those direct pressures that they have. But of course, we have their sympathy. It may well be that sympathy wanes if financial reform comes down the line and takes from Shire districts to give to top tier authorities, particularly given that the impact on us is of losing, say, even £1 million of funding. Is far greater than would necessarily fill the pot that the county council would face, but it's something we're going to have to be vigilant to further down the line.
Thanks. Nope. Okay. I think Gaz.
Thank you, Leader. Again, it's really on the risks, and I just really wanted to get a better understanding on the D, the increased localisation of business rates, business rate, reset review and needs. The original score showed that we were looking at likelihood rate, impact rate, relative risk rate. That maintains. So what I want to know is that what can we be looking at to obviously see that risk change? Because obviously we see other, if I looked at the B, for example, then check challenge and appeal, we've gone from yellows and reds to green. So I just really wanted to understand what that meant. I do apologise for my question.
No, it's fine. It's a matter of what we have control over, and effectively who holds the string. So far as protecting our resilience against business rates check and challenge, we can carry a reserve, which means that if we are subject to a change of a specific business's rates, we carry a reserve that can recognise that and effectively bail that account out if we're not going to receive the amount that we've projected. But so far as increased localization is concerned, that is something that's in the hands of national government, and it would require a decision made at a national level to change around the way in which the business rates pot is divided between authorities. I think our power in that is limited to lobbying, and we have been carrying out lobby letters with our local MPs, and will continue to do so. The most recent response that we received from from Treasury and DLUHC via Mr. Fabricant was that the government did not intend for there to be wide-ranging changes to local government finance before the next election. But of course, the reason why that risk remains red is that none of us know when the election is going to be. And it could be rather sooner than we necessarily expect it to be. And so we can control the specific risk as it affects us as an authority by carrying the risk reserve, but we can't control the risk of wider national changes, which are going to hit every single shire district if that happens.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just to go on from me then, Rob, we see a lot in social already about upper tier authorities facing challenges, which is knocking confidence in some in the market of coming along to councils that perhaps do have money and are willing to invest, because the headline is all councils are run out of cash and have got no money. How would you describe our finances if one of these investors was to come knocking and say we want to do business in it?
I would say the Lichfield District Council is a financially stable and a fiscally prudent authority. There are no imminent risks at this stage that would affect our viability as a business partner. We are open for business, come and trade with us.
Brilliant, that's good to hear. Secondly, so one of the most important, well, the most important thing that we can do as a council each year is set a balanced budget. That is, I was going to say incredibly easy. It's never incredibly easy. Well, Anthony winces. It's never easy. It's challenging, but it's challenging when there is one large political group, so who are able to push that through along a political grouping. Clearly, that's not the position that we find ourselves in at the moment, and there are multiple political parties who we will need their support from to ensure that we don't end up in a position next year where we don't have a balanced budget. I'm really clear that we cannot get to budget setting season and not have a balanced budget. What are we doing now to make sure that we've got a budget that the whole council can be at least supportive in the main next year, so that we don't let down our residents?
Well, Leader, you were sitting behind me at scrutiny when I made the call for collegiality, and I repeat that today. It's incumbent on us as a controlling group to listen to the other groups around the council, because while we may have control, we don't have in any way a majority. It is also, I think, fundamentally important for us as councillors from all different parties to talk to each other, and that if there are ideas coming forward, I don't think there's any monopoly on those good ideas being brought from the controlling group. And I would like to see us be in a position where we can build a budget that the whole council can support, because the whole council has been able to contribute to it. And so while it may well be that the key themes that are coming through in this are the key themes that are driven by the controlling group, by no means do I think the door should be shut to any wider intervention. I certainly made a point of listening to opposition members with the last budget when we did have a majority. I will continue to make a point of listening to that now that we do not. And once again, please, members of all parties and none, ring me if there are ideas that you wish to share. Ring any cabinet member who has control over the thing that you wish to make a difference in, because it's only through that collegiality that we can actually build Lichfield District Council together and go forward.
Thanks, Councillor Stratton, appreciate that. If there are no further questions, then let's move to recommendations.
Leader, I move recommendations 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3 standing in my name.
Thank you. Those all in favour, you can go it. Brilliant. That's unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Stratton. Thank you, Anthony. And we'll stay with you for the next agenda item. This is a joint item which is brought to us. It's the Lichfield West Midlands Training Services Annual Report 22-23. This is in the name of Councillor Smith and Councillor Strachan, and it's with Simon Kerry. So
could just
there's
Yeah,
four people.
I
have no
brought
idea
my
who
rugby
they're
ball
gonna
for the hospital pass to Councillor Smith. So
Brilliant.
Okay,
Councillor
that's-
Smith,
I shall catch it.
over to you.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, it's great to see a report from the Board of Directors. It's an honest, open appraisal of how the company's performed in 21 and 22. In my opinion, it provides an excellent account of the progress we have made in the first full year of trading as a company. It also has an excellent photo of Councillor Farrell on one of the pages where you an introduction as chairman. I'll let you look at that in your own time. And it really is great progress. Remember, we created the company in 2019 and it sat dormant for a while, sitting on quite a bit of the council's cash for 2 years. The Being a Better Council programme changed that. We had a clear direction for the company to begin trading in areas where genuine opportunities exist, and that's what this report evidences. 2021-22 was intended as a break-even position for the company. However, it's done even better than that. It's paid down the previous losses associated with not trading that period of time, the previous years. It's also provided a small management fee back to the council and also a small overall profit, as you can see in the report. I think that's great progress, and when I then supported an expansion of the activities that the company does in the current financial year, such as managing DFGs and managing our leisure centres. In doing so, we set a challenge to the directors. The DFG service was a failing service with our previous providers. Our leisure centres after COVID were failing under our previous providers also. We've asked the director of Lichfield West Midlands to turn that around, take both their services on board and provide a larger fee back to the council this current financial year. There are of course big challenges, but I think we can do it, and I very much look forward to the next year's report, setting out how we did it, and looking even better than it does today. Leader, I'll let the MD or the chairman say a few words if they wish, or just answer any further questions that the cabinet may have. Cheers.
Go on. Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Farrell.
I'll go first. Thanks, Councillor Fick. You're pleased to know we are doing better than that photo of me would suggest. It's a good start. You know, as Councillor Smith said, it's the first year of trade. This covers from 2022 to 23. The company is wholly owned by Lichfield District Council. I think that's really important to emphasise. Our objectives are creative in our thinking, we're commercial in our approach, and innovative in our delivery. So I think you can see from this report that things are going in the really right direction. We're determined to pioneer new ways of delivering public services. We're generating the income to be used for the interest and the benefit of our residents of Lichfield District. We really want to benchmark, I think, as a company for other councils across the country to kind of see new ways to do things, new ways to make money and also deliver services in a better way for council. The revenue in this period was strong, as Councillor Smith said. We exceeded our financial targets to break even, produced a small surplus at the end of the year after the management fee was paid to the council. All the money that we make in this council goes directly back to the Lichfield District Council. And I expect in year 2 to see a step change, hopefully, in terms of the number, variety and complexity of services that we provide. And hopefully this will grow in significant ways in our revenue. We welcome the trust the council are putting in us as a company, the challenges that we've got, as Councillor Smith said, new leisure centre, disabled facilities grants, communication services, and more hopefully in the future. So I'm really pleased with this, really good report. The team have done excellently. It's, I'm really proud to be a chairman. I don't know if any of the other directors wish to say anything, but thank you, Councillor Smith, for a glowing report.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Simon?
Thank you, Chair. Not a great deal to add to the chairman of the board's comments. Thank you, other than to say, I think that the chair in his comments and in the report has identified the need for us to make sure that the governance arrangements of the company are strong and robust. In addition to the work that President did for us during the last financial year, the Section 151 and I have agreed that we will undertake an internal audit of governance arrangements. So that's partly on the back of President's initial findings, partly on the back, I think, of some feedback that we've had from ONS as well. So that is beginning almost imminently as well. I welcome that piece of work. We are a much larger company this current financial year than we were last financial year. So making sure we get governance right is absolutely a priority for the board of directors. That's the only thing I'd add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Questions? There's not much to ask any questions now. Councillor Festival.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you for highlighting the internal audit inputs to the governance side. That was certainly something that I was going to intending to highlight. And having sat on the Audit and Standards Committee in the past, I find it an extremely capable provision, and certainly I think that they will be adding to that for certain. Just a couple of questions. First one on landlord services. Again, looking at what's happening of late. With regards to the properties that we've got and aerated concrete, there was a number of inspections, and I did notice that there was a very quick email that was sent out that gave us as members an update. If we can just find out where we're at with that one, and also whether or not that level of response, that which I thought was significantly speedy, if that was down to the fact that those operations took place in the LATCO. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to provide a really brief update on this, as you say, the team responded really quickly. We are confident that none of our assets do have that particular concrete in. We have got just a couple of assets that are still left to do a thorough inspection on. And just to highlight, that's not due to the team's capacity, that's just due to trying to get an appropriate time that we can actually go in and do a thorough investigation, so kind of working with the leaseholders. But the team are confident that that type of concrete isn't in our assets, but for our own kind of conclusions, we just want to thoroughly check that out. I think it is, we have invested in our property services and we've brought in skilled officers to deliver that service. So I do think it is an absolute reflection of the move of the services into the LATCO and what we've done to strengthen that team and that service.
Just the second one, which is I noticed that we've got a lovely infographic, and I think it's ever so helpful when you sort of have those headlines to see the performance that's being delivered. But I was curious as to the 437 public inquiries, what that relates to, and whether that volume is an indication of anything that we should be concerned about.
I think you know the answer to this, don't you? Go on.
So this relates to number of kind of public queries and kind of stakeholder queries into our property team. So that's queries about land ownership, property ownership, and those related types of queries. We would hope to reduce that number down in the future, and again, looking at how we make more information around property ownership public so that people can self-serve. So again, the team's time and resources can be spent elsewhere, and I know the team are looking into that currently. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Any more? Councillor Potts, you have a question? No,
Sorry, I'm
sure,
sure.
no, it's all right now. I think I suppose my only. There's more comment than a question, is that I think this report's really helpful and it demonstrates we've been able to turn a profit and surplus, however you want to frame that, and we're doing that from a standing start to just over a year ago. The governance question I think has already been sufficiently covered off. I suppose I just urge us all to ensure that whilst the profitability of the company is absolutely paramount, otherwise it ceases to serve a purpose, underlying that, the business plan, which I know is going to go to audit and to scrutiny as well, really encapsulates the level of service that we want to see delivered as a council through the company. So actually we're not just using the company to generate a surplus. What we're actually doing is to generate a far better service delivery for our residents. And actually that's where the real value of this is, that we can, DFG is I think a brilliant example. If we can stop seeing that capital slippage every single year where people are unable to have their homes adapted because we're unable to get that pushed through in a sufficiently timely manner, I think there's tremendous value there for our residents as well as value for the council as well. So yeah, through the business plan that I know is going to ONS and audit, just to look at that very carefully to make sure that the company is doing what we need to. So now who's going to do? Councillor Smith, you'll do the recommendations, won't you? Over to you, your recommendations.
I'm recommending the recommendations, one of the recommendations for the what's in the report.
Brilliant. We're going to receive and agree the annual report 2022, 2023.
Thank you very much.
There you go, and we all agree. Yeah, fantastic. And there we go. We've unanimously agreed that report. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who's put a lot of hard work into that. Thank you, Simon and obviously the chairman. Right, final item on the agenda tonight then, Councillor Cox. Over to you, joined by Kerry for the voluntary and community sector funding programme 2024 to 2027.
Thank you, Leda. I'm delighted that this vote is coming to cabinet. I think it expresses our commitment where we can in the voluntary sector. I think the voluntary sector, certainly during the COVID period, was one sector that you could say rose to the occasion in supporting our communities. And I think it's only fair that we obviously recognise that fact and at least be able to do something with regards to funding those organisations. You will see it's not the greatest pot of money, but we hope that it will be treated as a really value for those that will go through the process of a two-stage application for the benefit, obviously, the public. It fits in a sense with our community power strategy, and indeed going forward the 2050 strategy. So we are covering that and ensuring that we are doing the right thing behind our voluntary sector. And you'll see at 3.3, those organisations that benefited over the last few years, and you can see it's a wide-ranging, important, each one delivering a service to members of the public in their own way. And I think there isn't one that you couldn't say you would undervalue, you would overvalue them. They are wonderful organisations, and I think our support is very much required for them to continue. But it's not going to be easy for applications. There is at the ceiling, and there's also a starting bid on there. to ensure that we are not looking at oversubscribed with organisations that are looking for smaller. But we are emphasising then where those monies could be obtained. So it's not if we're ruling anything out. And we've got We Love Lichfield very much in the frame, and we would look at the Lichfield Community Lottery as well by encouraging groups and so forth to get themselves registered on there, because in a sense, any ticket sold, the monies go to that organisation when it's being nominated. Those organisations, those people that are not choosing an organisation, we send that money then to We Love Lichfield to distribute within their funding streams of up to £1,000. So we're trying to think that we're covering everywhere. So you have the report before you, colleagues. If there are anything you'd like me to answer or ask Kerry, I can ask Kerry. But I think the key thing is in the second page we've got on the appendix, and it's also at 3.8 is our timetable. And I'm keen to emphasise in terms of the 19th of January that to involve members of the council through the political groups is that there will be a member panel created to go through the assess the stage 2 responses from the officers. So we will get then cross-party working. And I might add that was something that we did prior in last year's when we had very valued contributions, certainly from Councillor Raw and the former Councillor Tranter, who were able to review the 2 applications we received, and that their help and assistance in it was deeply valued. So that will continue. So, Sharon, that's my.
Brilliant. Thanks, Councillor Cox, Councillor Farrell, and Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Leader. Just want to say I really welcome this report. You know, I think most of us in this room have volunteered in some way or another over our years, and you know, I think Councillor Cox said, "Oh, you know, it's not a massive amount of money," but actually, you know, for lots of community groups, if you're in the town, it's really important. You know, it can either buy litter picking bags, that's the kind of thing they do. They can buy costumes of their drama groups. You know, it can go a long way. The only thing I would ask, maybe it's a question for Councillor Cox, is just to make sure that this is well publicised, because you know lots of groups come to me via parish councils or myself as a councillor to say, do you know where I can find little pots of money to support our group? So you know, the more we can publicise this, the better. But I think it's a really good scheme.
Brilliant, thank you, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you. Like Councillor Farrell, I fully support this. I think it's the exact kind of thing we should be doing. I think it's a really good amount of money that we've got to do it as well. Just got one really small question under the financial implications section, where it breaks it down. We've got the community and multi-sector grants. That's what we're talking about, obviously. We've got the council community fund. I know what that is. Then we've got small grants as well. Now I didn't see those mentioned anywhere else in the report. But where does small grants fit into this? Is that a separate thing we do? And if it is, why don't we just roll that into this and just do it as one thing?
Can I ask Kerry?
And that's just from an admin question. It's not from a
Yes.
review question.
Thank you, Chair. So that small grants pot is what we provide to We Love Lichfield on an annual basis for them to distribute as small grants across the district. And as the paper outlines, We Love Lichfield offers grants up to £1,000, hence why our prospectus we pitched at £1,000 and above.
That makes perfect sense. If it said We Love Lichfield in that section, I'd be cool.
Okay, thank you. And We Love Lichfield, of course, is We Love Lichfield District. Just to be clear. Any more?
Can I
Yeah,
come
sorry.
back on Councillor Farrell's. Obviously, the small amounts that he was referring to are not going to be within this particular give here. But the emphasis is that we are wanting to obviously ensure that the Wheeler Litchfield district is aware of it, and in terms of publicising it. And certainly our aim is to not only uplift what we're doing here in terms of the public eye and those voluntary sector groups, but certainly in terms of the partnership that we have with We Love Litchfield and also the community foundation, to ensure that we actually are emphasising those pots of money that are available on the smaller amounts. And I'm also, as it refers in the paper under financial constraint on the implications, not constraints, the Council of Community Fund, I will be taking a paper to scrutiny in November. And I'm hoping that they will support the continuation of that will then enable councillors themselves within their own wards and neighbouring wards to be able to offer those smaller amounts that you might be referring. As you rightfully say, £50 to some organisation is as important and as valuable as some of the big players who might be benefiting from this particular funding.
Right, thank you. Councillor Weston.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a couple of quick ones from myself, please. So I think we've already made the point about the level of pots that's being distributed there. With regards to the lottery and the participants, are there any plans to try and increase how many people are taking part in that? So hopefully the pot that can be distributed gets quicker. Can I ask that one first of all, and then I'll come back with a slightly different.
Well, it's a very short answer in terms of yes. We will be absolutely trying to elevate the whole process there. And Councillor Smith and I had a prime example of a group that came to us that actually didn't know anywhere of any funding sources. Now that might mean that that particular organisation has been a change of personnel and so forth, and it hasn't got round to the new people, and they were wondering where they can get money from. So that clearly says to me, we do need to make that very clear that where people can get it, and we would like to really do some promotion with both We Love Litchfield and the lottery, and also the community foundation as well, because they often are in the know of where funding can be provided.
And the nuanced part of that was about how we can actually get more people to actually buy lottery tickets.
That in itself, we would hope, would be generated from the public. So the way that we will do the PR on it, that we will actually say, you know, if you've got an organisation that you favour, buy the tickets because they will get supported.
Yeah. And I think certainly from when I started subscribing to it, I've won a few free tickets and things like that we can go to. So I would certainly advocate the more people that chip in, the more local organisations that are going to benefit from it as well. Second question, on the report on the contribution to the delivery of the strategic plan, the first bullet point mentions about to enable Litchfield, Birchwood and our villages to thrive and flourish by supporting the local economy and so on and so forth. How do we actually track the demographics of the support and to ensure that it is a fair distribution? Of how do they fit a criteria, for example, that type of thing?
I think from what any monies that are given, there will be subsequent reports back to us. So they will have to be giving us updates of their progress. So there'll be, like, for example, over the 3 years it's awarded, annually we will receive a report to understand exactly how the money's being spent that will cover our district. I'm hoping that might be the answer to your question. Yeah.
Just to add to what Councillor Cox has said, as part of the application process, we are asking organisations to articulate whether there's a particular targeted group or community, be that geographical or a community of interest, that their particular bid is focused on, so that we can kind of understand, like I say, that spread of applications in terms of potentially some district-wide projects and bids versus some that might be focused on particular geographies or particular communities of interest as well. So we will look across the board at those different applications. Obviously, as part of the process, we will have an officer panel that will do scoring initially of those bids. And as Councillor Cox has outlined, there will also be a member panel as well, which will include 3 councillors chaired by Councillor Cox, including representations from the opposition groups, again, so we can do that sense and that check and balance in terms of how we're proposing to award them.
Thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you. Okay.
I'll look at the questions after. Can I ask a question?
Well, it's a difficult.
So firstly, can I say I'm really pleased to see that the award has come down from substantially from where it has been in the past. I think it's one thing we've seen from a series of crises globally over the last few years, and whatever they may be, is that actually quite often it's grassroots organisations that can deliver value, and quite frequently, perhaps what we might term legacy organisations that have typically had large pots of cash available to them, have struggled to make as big an impact so quickly on the ground to organisations. And I think Lichfield District is a microcosm of that. And as we look at organisations like Spark, like Burma Beer Friend, like Lichfield Helping, there are all these mutual aid groups that came out, and they didn't have huge grants available to them in order for them to be able to do work. They went out and did it. And I think it's that passion and that drive that we want to capture. But equally, we don't want to do it on the cheap and not support those organisations. So we're really pleased to see that floor has come right down to £1,000 a year, and will hopefully encourage far more organisations to apply. I think my only question at the moment is, so we've got stage 1 and stage 2. We're saying we've got a kind of a list of things, a checklist as it were, for people to tick at stage 1 to say you must incorporate these things. Absolutely fine with that. We then say you've got to score 70% to get through to stage 2. I'm just a little bit uncertain as who is deciding the percentage scores and on what criteria they are being measured as to how they are achieving 70%. I think that I may have missed it in the report, but I can't see it in the report.
I'm gonna hand that one out.
So the rationale for a stage 2 approach, and this has been recommended by our procurement manager, and also based on feedback from some community and voluntary sector organisations, which is by having a 2-stage approach, we can make sure we're not wasting organisations' precious time and energy if they're unlikely to be successful for a number of different reasons. In terms of the kind of initial assessment of stage 1, that will be undertaken by officers, but again, the view is we would do that sense check with the member panel to ensure they were comfortable with the scoring and to be comfortable with what that list looked like in terms of that 70% threshold. And again, I'm sure there will be probably a detailed conversation around those that are in around that mark. And again, we'll make sure that the member panel are comfortable with the proposal.
That's fine. Yeah, I think that we talk about the stage 1 question in the questionnaire there, but we don't say what the questionnaire is. So as long as there's going to be member involvement in what that questionnaire is, and we've got some sort of cross-party support on that, I think that'd be really helpful. Yeah, but I suppose I'm just really keen that what we don't do is chuck out what could potentially be a brilliant application based on some technicality at stage 1. But okay, it sounds like we're alive to that. Thank you. Okay, that's it from the council.
Later, I think it's a very valid point, and just as an example from the last round where the scoring had been done, there were 2, if I remember correctly, there was 2 organisations that missed out potentially by a very small mark, and that was a concern to me. And we actually did go back to it and see how we could use the funding available to us that could bring those two organisations into the pot. And so if we carry those principles forward, I'm hoping that that will answer your concerns. Yeah, thank you. And just a note on the, going back to the community, the lottery, it is noted the big prize is still to be won. So there is a challenge there in our PR as well to obviously look at that and say, hopefully we can help those organisations by people trying to doing it the right things to support local groups. And so recommendations at 2.1 to approve the 2024-27 VCS funding prospectus in appendix 1 to be launched on the 18th of October 2023. At 2.2 to delegate authority to the cabinet member for community engagement in conjunction with the chief operating officer to agree the funding awards, subject to the awards being within existing budgets and following consultation with an officer and a member panel.
Great, thank you. You can indicate support. That is unanimous. I think Councillor Strachan is not abstaining.
Sorry.
Or his support. Thank you, Councillor Cox. That wraps up the Zoom. Thank you very much. Good to see you all.